Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, the N-word is now banned in public schools across our region. Plus, a surgery in Windsor is making access to a certain kind of procedure easier for some patients. It means getting to stay in town and quicker recovery. A new report from the Conservation Authority gives our region a failing grade when it comes to water quality. We'll take a look. Bike thefts. We'll tell you how to prevent them and what to do if it happens to you. The Public School Board is taking another step to help eliminate anti-Black racism in schools. A new policy says the use of the N-word is now banned for both staff and students. But not everyone supports the move. TJ Deere has the story.
Staff and students in the Greater Essex County District School Board are no longer allowed to use the N-word. Some students told CBC News that they're in favor of the ban, saying it's better for everyone if it fades from use. Others say the ban is too restrictive on Black students who use it in a friendly manner. The school board posted this directive on its electronic system on March 10th. It says students are not allowed to say, write, or read out any version of the word and aren't allowed to ask Black students for permission to use it. The directive applies to staff members as well. According to the board's director of education, everyone understands the need to enhance, create, and maintain safe, welcoming learning and working environments free from discrimination. But this academic says the policy will create problems.
Because this is a zero-tolerance policy that has no nuance. White students will rarely be reported, white students will rarely be punished, and Black students will be singled out in the name of a policy that's supposed to help them for disciplinary action.
A third-party report published last May was critical of the board's efforts against anti-Black racism. The board apologized and launched a 5-year strategy to tackle the issue. The strategy contains more than 40 action items grouped into 5 strategic priorities. One of the items is to develop guidelines around the use of insulting language, including the N-word. Kelly said that any punishments for using the N-word would be judged individually. She also said that a report on the 5-year strategy would be going to the Board of Trustees in May. TJ Deere, CBC News, Windsor.
There's a less invasive surgery now being performed in Windsor for anyone diagnosed with an aortic aneurysm. For patients, that means cutting down on travel and recovery time.
This procedure saves lives. And so you have an 85-year-old who's got a massive aneurysm. Their heart function is not what it should be. You're not going to offer them an open surgery, but you are going to offer them an endovascular repair for their aneurysm to buy them an extra, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of life.
The aorta is the main vessel that carries blood from the heart to the rest of the body, and if it breaks, it can be fatal. Previously, patients being treated for this would be opened up through a large cut in their abdomen, and that meant they would stay up to 10 days in the ICU after the surgery and spend months recovering. Now, the less invasive surgery makes 2 small cuts in the groin area. With this, patients recover in weeks and experience less pain afterwards. Windsor Regional says it's one of only a few hospitals in Ontario that offers this type of surgery. And before this new surgery started up here, patients needed to travel to London or Toronto. Our region is getting a failing grade when it comes to the water quality and forest cover in our region. These findings stem from a new report card from the Essex Region Conservation Authority released today. Dale Molnar has the details.
Runoff from farm fields, greenhouses, and from residential fertilizer use is adding to high levels of phosphorus in surface water. And leaky septic tanks are adding to high levels of E. coli going into the tributaries in the region. These eventually end up in the Great Lakes and cause algae blooms, which can deprive the water of oxygen. IRCA says farmers are doing a good job of managing their fertilizer use, but Essex County is so agricultural, this area is bound to produce nitrate runoffs.
It's not really achievable or reasonable to think that we would ever get letter scores of A's or B's and maybe even C's in some of these watersheds, because this is where food is grown. And this is just a consequence of that.
Having said that, Stamler says farmers should always take care not to fertilize when it's about to rain. When it comes to how the runoff is affecting the Great Lakes, The scientists say it also depends on the weather.
It really depends on how wet of a spring we have. We can look at the months March through June roughly to see how much of runoff we have from our watershed into the lakes. If we have a dry spring, the blooms usually aren't too bad in the summer because we don't have as much of an input of nutrients.
IRCA says there are some things you can do to improve the water quality in our streams and rivers. Don't fertilize mature lawns, pick up after your dog, don't throw things like chemicals into the sewer, put yard waste out for collection, not in the sewer, and choose active transportation like cycling when you can. Despite the fact the tree cover in Essex County has increased from 4% to 5.7%, with IRCA planting more than 400,000 trees, the region is still scoring Ds in that area, and that isn't expected to change much. There is some good news in the report, however, that our groundwater continues to score top marks. That's mainly due to our clay soil. However, IRCA is going to be keeping an eye on the more sandier soil areas in the southeast. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
A Windsor man hopes the tale of his stolen e-bike can be a lesson for others. As warmer weather approaches, CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reports on what to keep in mind to protect your bike.
Sort of threw my arms up, and I knew right away what had happened.
Dan Devine had locked his new $1,700 e-bike to this pole before going into a shop. When he came out and didn't see his bike, he knew it had been stolen.
Well, you feel like you got punched in the stomach.
Devine thought he had done everything right. He used a cable lock and opted against securing the bike to the plaza's rack since it wasn't stable. But even then, his bike was targeted. He says he reported it to Windsor police, but that no officers came to the scene, and they told him to gather nearby surveillance video.
I thought for a theft of $1,700 that they would definitely come and investigate. And I'm not going to walk into a bank and say, hey, can I check out your video surveillance system?
No, we don't tell people to go canvass neighborhood for their own video.
Constable Adam Young says instead they'll ask people to submit any video they might have of the property being stolen. He says bikes are frequently taken in the city. A local bike expert says this has been an ongoing problem, one that doesn't seem to be getting better.
We know that bike parking is rare in the city of Windsor. So for people who are running an errand, they're going someplace, they're always looking for parking. And if there's no parking there, then they're having to tie up on something else, which could be a myriad of things and not necessarily very secure.
Newton advises people to get the best lock they can. Often these are U-locks, and to make sure they're attaching the lock to the bike's frame, not its tire. The Ontario Provincial Police say people should take pictures of their bike and track their serial number. They also advise storing the bike in a well-lit place or indoors. As for Devine, he's just hoping his story will prevent one person from getting their bike stolen.
I'm more concerned about the other people that don't know how easy it is to steal something like that.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
The Ontario budget will be released tomorrow, and Premier Doug Ford is giving a preview of one item in it, a tax break for manufacturers. But the opposition is hoping the budget will also include help for average Ontarians. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has the details.
Premier Doug Ford got a close-up look at the work at a plumbing parts plant in Oakville. It's just one business that will benefit from today's pre-budget goodie.
We'll be proposing the new Ontario-made investment tax credit.
It's a 10% refundable tax credit, up to $2 million savings on building and equipment purchases by Canadian-controlled companies.
This new tax credit will help local manufacturing companies grow, innovate, become more competitive, and most importantly, create good-paying jobs.
It'll cost taxpayers $780 million over 3 years.
How are you?
This is the second day in a row the Premier gave an early look at a budget item.
Good to see you.
Yesterday, promising more than $200 million for training centres for skilled workers to address the labour shortage. The Liberal Party says today's announcement can help.
I think I would also like to see the government make sure that they are doing this across more sectors, because again, there are lots of sectors beyond manufacturing.
The NDP hopes to also see measures in the budget, such as rent control and more affordable housing.
I'd like to see them actually bring forward measures that are going to make life better for real people, not big corporations, regular people who are struggling right now every day. And I hear this government get up in the legislature every day and deny that anything is wrong, as if they're living in like the Twilight Zone. Are we living on the same planet?
Given higher prices, one economist says transferring money to low-income people could help.
Because those are the folks that are most impacted by inflation, and there's less risk of stimulating inflation if transfers are targeted towards lower income households.
One public policy expert says this could be a good time for the government to offer more money for healthcare workers at a time when many have left. Enough is enough! More than 3 years since Bill 124 was introduced that limits public sector wages.
The world's changed since the bill was introduced. And I think there's an opportunity here for the government to take a step back and say, we need to have a fresh approach. And I think it would actually do them a lot of good on the health human resources front because pay matters.
We'll learn all the details in this year's Ontario budget late tomorrow afternoon when the finance minister stands up in the legislature to deliver it just after 4 p.m. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's construction industry is sounding the alarm over a shortage of skilled workers. In New Brunswick, projects are being put on hold because employers say they're short hundreds of people. As we hear from the CBC's Alexander Silberman, employers are calling on the province to change its immigration policies.
And there's just so many calls each week, people wanting projects, well, they want them jobs started and completed. Problem is, there's just the shortage in labor. And then my standard answer now is what's your timeline? And if they say it's not 2 years from now, it's not likely going to happen.
In Moncton Skyline, cranes keep rising as development hits record-breaking levels. The city issued $366 million in building permits in 2022. Moncton's housing market added more than 1,200 residential units last year, but construction companies just can't keep up with the demand.
It's been a struggle, and it's hard. You know, customers are so upset, and just, you know, how long is this going to take? Well, I can't tell you that because the labor is just such a scary thing, and it goes with my electricians, my plumbers. They're feeling the same thing.
How challenging is it to find employees right now?
Right now, I've never seen it so bad. I can say in the last 18 months, I can probably count on one hand local people that have applied.
In New Brunswick, nearly a third of construction workers are 55 and older and expected to retire soon. The province will need to fill an estimated 5,000 jobs over the next 5 years. That's in addition to over 2,000 people needed right now.
It's a people problem. There's just not enough people in New Brunswick to fill those job vacancies. So now we're really ramping up our efforts to advocate for immigration reform that will allow our members and our contractors to bring in the talent that they need.
And I enjoy that. You know, you will see that you spend your day not just like. So at the end of the day, you will see that you spent your time in the right way.
We really need to work together with government to put it back to a place where we're able to recruit right from, high school and bring these people into our industry so that we can continue to build the services that Canadian citizens, have come to rely on.
That report from the CBC's Alexander Silberman in Moncton. As Ottawa investigates claims of political interference by the government of China, many Canadians have a more pressing fear. Chinese Canadians who have spent years warning Ottawa about potential meddling are now afraid of growing racism. CBC's Lisa Shing has more.
Amazing, thank you. There's a lot more on Karen Tang's mind lately than just the day-to-day work at Edmonton City Hall.
I can almost sense some of the stereotypes that might come with it, or questioning or skepticism. Oh, are you one of them?
As one of the first diverse women elected to council,
I would hate for something like this to set back the progress we have made.
She's worried about how claims China interfered in Canada's elections may reflect on her and other Chinese Canadians.
If there is this misconception that you're somehow being controlled by some foreign government, then there's less chance of winning.
Vancouver has elected its first Chinese Canadian mayor.
Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim has hit back at a Globe and Mail report that named him, claiming the Chinese consulate meddled in the municipal election there last year.
If I was a Caucasian male
we're not having this conversation.
Global News reported Ontario MPP Vincent Ke has ties to Beijing, which he has denied. Now there are growing concerns the allegations will dissuade Chinese Canadians from running for office.
It will create a chilling effect for anyone even considering running for office.
Henry Yee is one of several academics who have signed an open letter to Special Rapporteur David Johnston, charged with looking into the alleged interference. They're urging him to recommend anti-racist education and to not stigmatize any one group or country.
Don't make it a Chinese problem. Don't just focus your scrutiny on one set of people.
Because there's already a cultural legacy that engaging in politics is risky, scholars fear that singling out China will mean a lack of diversity at the table and a hit to Canada's democracy. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Authorities have blocked internet access and restricted gatherings in northern India in an attempt to locate one man, a Sikh separatist leader. Ithil Musa has details on the search that has affected tens of millions of people in Punjab.
Police in India's Punjab state are desperately trying to find Amrit Paul Singh. For a fourth straight day, authorities have blocked internet access for about 27 million people to prevent unrest as police continue their manhunt of Singh. The self-styled preacher openly supports the Khalistan movement, which seeks to create a sovereign state for Sikhs in India. Violent clashes have erupted over the years between followers of the movement and the Indian government. But Singh claims his true fight is against drug abuse, which has ravaged India's northern state.
I'm standing with my own people. There will be consequences, I know that. But what I can do? You want me to be silent, let my people die? I can't do that.
One expert says Singh's anti-drug stance is resonating with younger Punjabis.
His message was that youth need to get off drugs and return to their roots. And he was actually quite successful.
Last month, hundreds of Singh's supporters stormed a police station, demanding the release of an aide who had been arrested. Now, he and his supporters stand accused of attempted murder, obstruction of law enforcement, and creating disharmony. Police say more than 100 people have been arrested since Saturday. Some experts say targeting Singh and his followers is about India's Hindu nationalist government silencing dissent.
In fact, minority communities, whether that's the Sikh community or Muslims or Christians, they've all been saying for a very long time that they're under siege.
Punjab's High Court is now demanding to know how Singh managed to elude a police force with 80,000 officers for days. The court has ordered the state government to submit a report on search operations, which it's calling an intelligence failure. Ithil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
A live look outside there. It's looking gray because we do have periods of rain expected overnight. Colette Kennedy will be here after the break with us with more on your weather. Stay with us. It's a sure sign of spring. Locals and tourists alike are out in full force to enjoy the annual display of cherry blossoms in a popular Tokyo park. The delicate flowers are in full bloom. The display arrived 9 days early this year because of warm weather, and it's one of the earliest full blooms ever, according to Japan's weather agency. And I know that Colette is looking at this with me, and it just gets me so excited about what's to come for us.
They're just so delicate, so beautiful, right? Yeah. Just that palest of pink. Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I love that we have them here in North America too, so we'll be able to enjoy them. Maybe not quite yet here, but we're getting pretty close, aren't we? And I just want to show you what's happening like with the temperature story. If you look into the Midwest, where these aren't what the highs were for today. These are the current temperatures, so they're close to 20 degrees there. And then the nation's capital right at freezing, and of course there's some colder air back to the north and west of us, but it's that contrast as we get this next system moving in that's bringing, yes, rain showers just starting to work their way into southwestern Ontario, very light in nature, but we've had it reported at the airport now. But just looking here into eastern Ontario, where that temperature is right at freezing, yeah, this system brings in some freezing rain. So it's somewhat patchy in nature, but there is a freezing rain warning there. So something to just note if you're going to be traveling for any reason in that direction. I know it's a ways, but it's still going to be there through the night and into tomorrow morning. So just pointing that out, that's kind of the only really active weather that we are dealing with, because otherwise it's just rain and some of the wind coming through. The temperatures are going to be interesting as well, nearly steady or in fact rising. I'll show you that profile here in just a moment, but at 9 degrees with that southwesterly flow as some of that warmer air is trying to work its way in to our area. And there you're seeing very little, right? There's been more consistent rain to the north. It's moved across Georgian Bay, and it's just been mostly the cloud cover with those few sprinkles that I mentioned are kind of coming in. But this is going to fill out more and keep pushing into southwestern Ontario so that we get into the waves, these bands of rain through the overnight and even early tomorrow morning, and some of them a little bit heavy at times. Also, with the passing of the front, there'll be some gusty winds. So just know that at times those winds are going to kind of kick up, and we'll see them gusting towards 40 or even 50 kilometers an hour. So that's to note. And also to note quickly, if I could get to it, because I think I'm out of time here, I just wanted to show you how the temperatures towards morning will actually, they'll dip, but then they'll be coming up, and we should reach those double digits. And then that front behind that, Katerina, is when we're going to see the colder air moving in. So we may be even cooler in the afternoon than in the morning, but drier too.
Okay, thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, a new step to help people suffering from rare diseases. That's coming up. The federal government has announced a new national strategy to help people with rare diseases. Ottawa will provide up to $1.5 billion over the next 3 years to improve access to drugs used to treat these kinds of conditions.
We estimate that the funding could benefit up to 9,600 additional patients, including over 4,500 children.
The health minister says the money will be used to help provinces and territories expand coverage of new and existing drugs. The government says 1 in 12 Canadians have a rare disease, and that innovative treatments can cost between $100,000 and $2 million a year. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has spent the day being grilled by a parliamentary committee in an appearance that could damage or even end his political career. He was quizzed about misleading statements he made to Parliament about several parties that were held in violation of COVID lockdown rules, so-called Partygate.
I'm here to say to you, hand on heart, that I did not lie to the House. When those statements were made, they were made in good faith and on the basis of what I honestly knew and believed at the time.
The parties were held in government buildings during his time as Prime Minister. If it is determined that Johnson deliberately misled Parliament, he could be suspended and could lose his seat in the House of Commons. Johnson had said COVID rules were followed, but has since admitted that he was wrong. However, he says he did not intentionally mislead his fellow lawmakers. And before we go, people in Belgium are standing a little taller today after a rare baby giraffe was born in the country's biggest zoo. Oh my goodness, the cutie. The little calf is a Rothschild giraffe. That means his coloring pattern is unique. No two animals are exactly alike. He's the size of a teenager now and could grow to nearly 20 feet or 6 meters tall, making giraffes the world's tallest animals. And this type is particularly threatened, so every birth is celebrated. And a little known fact, giraffes do everything standing up, including delivering a calf and sleeping. And that is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/Windsor. And you can, of course, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.